Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and in this video we'll be continuing our How to Play series. So this is a series which I started about a year ago and I did a few episodes and I was happy what I did, but I really feel like there's a few things I missed out, and things what I covered were like how to start Age of Sigmar, which is one of the most popular ones in the series, so you can go check that out if you would like to find out how to start Age of Sigmar. I also did how do war scrolls work, I do endless spells for beginners, and then I also did a part 1 and a part 2 of how to play Age of Sigmar on the table, where I demonstrated how the units work on the table and how their rules interact with each other. And I have actually got a part 3 for that coming out at some point in the future. I have recorded it, I just need to edit it. So what I wanted to do in this video is talk about how do you actually build a legal army in Age of Sigmar. So what do I mean by a legal army? I simply mean an army that follows the pitch battle rules, which essentially are if you want to play with points in Age of Sigmar and you're not just playing open play, which is essentially just put whatever models you like on the table, and you're not playing narrative, which is all obviously about the story, but you want to go, I want to have a fairly, as we can say, balanced game, and if you win that game, you know that you did it by yourself rather than just happening to play, I don't know, an extra 5,000 points more in your army than you had in your opponent's army. And I know there are some armies out there that aren't balanced and maybe too powerful, everything like that. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just talking about if you want to have the most sort of like equal playing field in Age of Sigmar and you want to play a bit more competitively, pitch battles is for you. And in this, what we're going to do is we're going to talk over the pitch battle rules that we have in the General's Handbook 2020. Again, the General's Handbook 2021 when that comes out, and then the following ones in case you're watching this in the future. They may have tweaked a few things, but everything else will probably be pretty much the same, as the main things we're going to cover in this video have kind of been a staple now ever since points were brought into Age of Sigmar. What I will also say is if you are an experienced player of Age of Sigmar, you already know how to play the game, simply don't watch this video, watch another one of my videos if you'd like to. This is not going to be for you because we're going to take things very slow in this video, because the reason why I want to push forward with the How to Play series and resume it essentially, because like I said, I was happy what I did, but I think there's a few things we can talk about, is because everyone is new to some game at some point in the future, right? If I said, actually, you know what, I want to play the Middle-earth strategy battle game, or I don't know, Necromancers or the Horus Heresy, wouldn't have a clue how you played, and I certainly wouldn't have a clue of how you actually build a match play, pitch battle, legal, points, whatever you want to call it, army. So I know there are some people, and quite a few people who watch my channel who are quite new to Age of Sigmar, so I thought this video could be really helpful for you. Again, what I cover in this video will be how you can structure your army. So things like what are the maximum heroes you can have in your army, what's the maximum artillery, monsters, things like that. How can you actually construct your army and the requirements and the limits you have when you want to play pitch battle and match play. And this is the most popular way to play this game, which is an important thing to mention. Again, if you have any questions at any point during this video, put them down in the comments down below and I will try and help you best I can. If it's a question like how do war scrolls work or something like that, like I said, go check out that video, Endless Spells, go check out that video. Or you're just wondering how do you start Age of Sigmar, please go check out that video like I already mentioned. And if there's something in that video that I didn't cover, please put a question in the comments of that video. And like I say, I'll try and help you best I can. So with that, guys, the only thing I just want to say before we get started is going to be a massive thank you to the lifeblood of the channel, which are my patrons, who through their generosity I am able to keep up this channel and be able to justify the amount of time I put into YouTube. So a huge thank you to my wonderful Morgasts, which are going to be the amazing Sandback, the incredible Johnathan H, the fantastic Filq, and the brilliant Bleed Red. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support of that tier. It really does keep the channel going. Then moving on to my great vampires, we've got Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, and Ronni H. Guys, please keep up the great work, it's really helping. And then, of course, my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Krista F, and Krista C. Guys, you all really helped towards keeping the channel going, so thanks a lot. Right, so the first thing we're going to have a look at, and essentially the main thing we're going to cover, like I mentioned, is this page of General's Handbook. I'm just going to read through it quite slowly and explain what it means as we go through. So the first thing it says is Pitch Battles 2020. Again, like I said, if you're looking at a future General's Handbook, just input that number. So the following rules allow you to play a pitch battle either as a one-off game or as part of an Age of Sigmar tournament. They replaced the pitch battle rules in the General's Handbook 2019 and the Warhammer Age of Sigmar core book, which is like the massive book you get with Soul Wars that you can buy separately. So to play a pitch battle, You and your opponent will first need to decide what type of pitched battle game you want to fight, and then you will need to pick your armies. The type of game you will pick will determine how big the battle will be. The larger the battle, the more points you will have to spend on units for your army, but the longer the game will take. There are 3 different types of pitched battles to choose from. So the game types we have are Vanguard, which is going to be a game length of up to 1.5 hours. This is a 1,000 point game. We have the Battle Host, which is going to be 2,000 points, which will be up to 2 to 2.5 hours. And then we have the War Host, which is 2,500 points, which is going to be 3 or more hours to play. So just to let you know, when you're very new to the game as well, which I imagine you are if you're watching this video, just take these timings with a pinch of salt. This is really, if you were to play like a tournament in Age of Sigmar, these would be the times you have to play your game within. However, when you're playing your new games and you're new to this, it's going to take you a lot longer than the time stated here. I've had, when I've been teaching people how to play, we're just playing 1,000 points, it's gone on for 2.5 hours as an example. Not as in like, oh, people are really slow and they're trying to play, just generally because you want to make sure that you're not getting the rules wrong. You want to take your time to really just make sure that you enjoy it and you don't just feel rushed. And things like the Battle Host, which is the most common way to play, which is the 2,000 points. So if you want to know the most common way to play Age of Sigmar, it's pitched battles, so what we're talking about here, and it's 2,000 points. That's the most common way to play Age of Sigmar. And when we have things called like Battle Host, War Host and Vanguard, most people would just refer that to a 1,000 point game, 2,000 point game, 2,500 point game, rather than the names stated here. I think the names are cool, but people just really focus on how many points it is, because that's really all that matters. And then, like I was going to say, the Battle Host my average games of Battle Host probably go up to about 3 hours. If I'm playing with a mate and I'm chatting, sometimes it can go up to 6 hours, right? But that's very, very extreme examples, but probably average about 3 hours. War Hosts don't often play that. I have played one game of that, and that probably goes on for more about 4, because there's just so many units, but you don't often get to play it. Hey, but if you're playing a load of War Host games, fantastic. It's just because War Host, if you're, let's say, want a game around your place, you couldn't play that on a coffee table or anything. You couldn't even play the Battle Host, but a War Host is quite hard to find space if you're not playing at a store, and at the moment with the world how it is with lockdowns and stuff, it's quite hard to find the space to play a War Host game. But if you've got obviously TTS, not sponsored by them any way, shape or form, you could try out a War Host on that with no problem whatsoever. And then it says, after you have agreed what type of game you want to play, look it up on the chart to the right. The chart lists the number of points each player has to spend on units for their army and what limitations apply to the types of units that the player can bring. Each player must pick the units they will use for their army as described next. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a look at the table, and like we've already mentioned, this is already going to be on the screen so you can see, and if you can't see it, you can't read it, don't worry, I'll be talking through it now. So the Vanguard will start at first, and like I mentioned, this is 1,000 points, and that can be up to 1,000 points. It doesn't have to be bang on 1,000 points, but obviously if it can be up to 1,000 points and your opponent's brought 1,000 and you've brought 400, you're probably going to have a bit of a rough time. So it can be up to 1,000 though, and there are benefits if you're like 1990 or something. If you've got less points than your opponent, you get a triumph, which we've covered before as well. So then going on to what you can do with 1,000 points. So what are your restrictions for this amount of points? So you can have 1 to 4 leaders, so that tends to be your heroes in the game, right? Like the one-off standing characters. And then you've got the battle line, so this is going to be things like your just standard troops if you're coming from 40k. If I was to talk about Slaves of Darkness, you've got things like Chaos Warriors. Stormcast have got things like Liberators, Flesh-Eater Court's got things like Crypt Ghouls, and then there are other things that you can take to make battle line. They are kind of like the basic troops of your army. And then going on to the artillery, you can have 0 to 2. So this is the first thing that we've seen where it's not like there's a minimum number you need to take, purely because not every single army has access to artillery. But the other thing is that it's not always needed, but it means that you can't have more than 2. So let's say you want to play Oshroch Bone Reapers, you've got 1,000 points to spend on your army. You can't have 3 catapults there because that would be 3 artillery, so that wouldn't be alright. And then going on to Behemoths, you can have 0 to 2. So again, the same like artillery, which some armies might go, haven't got any Behemoths. But then some armies may really rely on them, so it will affect different armies differently. And there are some armies out there as well that mean that behemoths that you are restricted to, 0 to 2, because their army is all about behemoths, like I think, for example, the Sons of Behemoth, then like they can take more than it says here because they count as battle line and everything else, but that is more in-depth stuff. But just so you know, there are a few things out there that can bend these rules, but most things can't. And then when we move on to endless spells, you can take 0 to 2, which is going to obviously, like we've already mentioned, affect some armies more than others. And then we get to other units, and it says any number. So these are things that are neither, behemoths, artillery, heroes, a battle line. So if I was just to say Furies from Slaves to Darkness, or I was to say a Corpse Cart from Legions of Nagash as an example, those are other units, and you can have any number of those. And then when it comes to the last bit, it's actually something quite interesting. So this is called allied units and points. So you can have 200 points or up to 200 points of allies. That doesn't mean you have to, but you can do. And that does not mean that your army can be 1,000 points and then an extra 200 points worth of allies. They will have to be within your 1,000 points for your vanguard. And some armies really benefit from allies and some don't. So it really depends on your army and what can you take as allies. That is going to work differently for different armies. And when I review armies in my long in-depth videos, so in case you want to check those out for a bit more details about certain armies, I do try and mention which are good allied choices. If there's enough interest for allies, maybe I'll do a separate video on that as like an overall for Age of Sigmar. But anyway, so that's what you get for 1,000 points. That's what you can build your army around. And then when we move on to, like I said, the most common one, which is the battle host, this is going to be up to 2,000 points. And you need to have 1 to 6 leaders. So now you'll notice that the leader number, the minimum doesn't go up, but you can have a maximum amount go up. So 1 to 6. Battle line, this does increase, so you need at least 3 battle line. And the reason why I may be going, why is the battle line going up so much? It's just to stop some armies just spamming certain things, because they can just take really cheap battle line and then they can just take loads of nasty things. In some armies, the battle line can be the nasty things, but you need to take 3 battle lines, which is like kind of the tax. And when I go to build my armies, and like I say, I often play 2,000 points, I generally put the battle line in first, because I'm like, this is what I need to take. And then either expand on the battle line to try and make the most out of it, or I just take them as a minimum unit. So then going on to my artillery that you can take is going to be 0 to 4, which again, so that's doubled compare, and the points are doubled, so it makes sense. And then going on to the behemoths, again, it's 0 to 4 again, so you can see really you can start maximising on monsters and certain armies. And then when you go to other units, any number again, no surprise there. But then when we go to allied units, it's actually going to be up to 400 points, which has doubled. So that means that you really do have some flexibility now on what you can ally into your army. And it can really sort of change your list design and your list building tactics depending on what army you have and what you want to ally into it. And then going on to the war host, this is 2,500 points like I mentioned, and it's up to, so you can be a bit below and try and get a triumph. And you need to have 1 leader, but you can have up to 8 leaders this time, so you can see how really big this can be. Then you need to have 4 battle lines, so you need to have quite a fair bit of battle line there. And then you can have up to 5 pieces of artillery, which is obviously quite a large number depending on your army. And then you can have up to 5 behemoths, which again, quite a large number. And then you can have up to 4 endless spells, which is quite a bit. I mean, some armies before this General's Handbook 2020 would just spam endless spells. Some armies could do that well. But I think up to 4 is fair enough. You don't really need more than that unless you're a certain army build, which you're probably going to abuse it. So then going on to the other units, you can have any number. Of course, that's the same all the way through. And then you can have up to 500 points of allies, which is actually quite interesting because you may go, that seems like a lot. There'll be so many times when you try and put allies into your list and you may be like 410 and it's like, if only I was playing Warhost, but obviously that would completely change everything else about the list and is not really played too much. But if you guys are playing a lot of Warhost out there, like I say, my common one and most people's common one is 2,000 points. If you guys are playing loads of Warhost, that'd be really awesome to hear down below because I think that's quite good fun. And I'd like to play more of those games because big games are better games. You know, bigger the better, in my honest opinion. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to have a look at is actually going to be the special rule. So we actually have a special rule here, which means the following rule applies to all match play games. Now this isn't going to be specific to list building, but I might as well mention it because it is on this page. And that is going to be, you cannot make more than 1 dice roll, excluding rerolls, to negate a wound or mortal wound that has been allocated to a model. If you can use more than 1 ability to negate allocated wounds or mortal wounds, you must pick which ability you will use. So this won't affect every army, but 2 examples I'll bring up that will is things like if you've got Chaos Warriors or Chaos Knights in a Slaves of Darkness army and they have taken a mortal wound and you're going to roll to negate it, they're Chaos Shields if they've got them, will give them a 5-up save against it, but you may have a Chaos War Shrine in your army that can negate wounds and mortal wounds, and you would have to choose which ability you wanted to use, either the 5-up shield one or the 6-up save from the War Shrine, which obviously in that case you would go for the 5-up save with the shield unless there was a reason for why you wanted to take the mortal wound. And then things like the Flesh-Eater Courts, who get the Deathly's Courtier ability, so a 6-up save against wounds and mortal wounds. You then also have the Unholy Vitality spell from the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Terrorgeist that allows you to pick one of your units essentially within range of him, and they get a 5-up save against wounds and mortal wounds. You would have to pick which one you would get if you were eligible for both. Now, again, very specific circumstances, and if you're watching this video and you're very new, you probably don't really understand what that means, but it's just something I thought I'd mention here because it did actually make quite a big impact to the game when they introduced it here. But what I will say, where can it actually tie into list building, is that you may be building your list going, I've got so many extra after saves here to negate wounds and mortal wounds. Well, you don't really, because you can only pick one, unless you're some things like the Daughters of Cain, where you could re-roll the dice roll and stuff. So anyway, going on to the next thing I want to talk about is going to be actually talking about picking your army, which is quite an important thing. So each unit in a pitched battle is assigned a points value and a minimum and maximum unit size in its pitched battle profile. These profiles can be found in the General's Handbook, etc., etc. And then it goes on to say that on the Warhammer community website or on battle tomes where the war scroll for the unit appears. So that's basically where you can find out those details. Obviously, every unit's different. Go check that out. But sometimes when you read war scrolls, it does say this unit can contain any number of models, which is wrong. That's not for pitched battle and match play. So that's just standard stuff, guys. We've been over that already. So I am going to say the next thing, which is going to be the game type you have chosen for the battle determines how many points you can spend on the unit in your army. The combined points of that unit in your army must not exceed the number of points shown on the chart, what we've already been through. For example, in a battle host game, you can each field up to 2,000 points worth of units. So yeah, we've been through that, that's fine. And then going on to where it says allegiance. So, in a pitched battle, you must pick an allegiance for your army, as described in the core rules. All the units in your army must either have that allegiance or be allied to that allegiance. See allied units, which we'll get to in a moment. And allegiance, now this is just something I want to mention, as I will actually be doing as part of this series on How to Play Sigmar. What are allegiances? And how do they work? And what are sub-allegiances as well? Because I think that's something when I review armies, I've noticed that I kind of mention on what they are, but I am also just presuming everyone knows, which again, part of the series is to not presume people know how to play the game completely, because when we're all new, we don't know. So I will be doing more in depth on that, but essentially what this means, if you want to play a Flesh-Eater Court army, everything in your army has to be Flesh-Eater Courts, bar the allies, if you would like to include some, cannot be Flesh-Eater Courts. And that is how that works there. It's the same with things like Slaves to Darkness. So let's say you're playing Khorne March Slaves to Darkness in the Slaves to Darkness book, and then you go, what about if I want to bring some Bloodbound? They're mortal, they're Khorne. Can they just be part of the army? No, because, this is very important, they do not have the keyword to become Slaves to Darkness, so they would have to come out of your allies pool. If you wanted to bring I don't know, an Exalted Deathbringer or something like that, it would have to come out of your allies pool. Right, so then going on to the Endless Spells, it says Endless Spells have pitched battle profiles and a points cost. By paying the spell's points cost, all wizards in the player's army know the Endless Spell, and the player can use and or reuse one Endless Spell model of the appropriate type in the battle. A player cannot take the same Endless Spell model more than once for their army. For example, you cannot take 2 Balewind Vortex models. So just to say Endless Spells, again, I've done a really long video on Endless Spells for beginners. It's 2 hours long, guys, or just over, and we've gone through every Endless Spell that was available at that moment in time. And go check that out for more information with that. But what I will say is that this is quite straightforward. Imagine you can't cast the same spell more than once, that sort of thing, but you just can't take more than one of these Endless Spells in your armies, because you can see how it could kind of be a bit broken, or people could probably find a loophole to make it too powerful or something. So that's fair enough, and you don't want to just spam the same thing, it looks boring. So then going on to the battlefield roles, so some units are assigned a battlefield role in their pitched battle profile. A unit's battlefield role is based on how it is used in a battle. The pitch battle chart above lists the minimum number of leaders and battle line units you must include in a pitched battle army, and the maximum number of leaders, behemoths, artillery units, and in the spells it can include. A model that is a leader and a behemoth counts as one leader and one behemoth in your army. So that is something that we've already obviously been through there. And something I will say about this is get yourself over to Warscroll Builder on the WolfNick community site if you haven't already, because that is a good way to find out the points for units in Age of Sigmar, and is actually updated more regularly than the Age of Sigmar app that you pay for, which is ridiculous, right? So go check out on that. And the nice thing about that is when you're building your list, if you scroll up to the top of your list, it says how many battle lines you have in your army, how many leaders, how many behemoths, and if you have too many, I believe the black text goes red. So you go, oh, you've got, I don't know, 5 out of 4 behemoths you could have in your army there. Then now you know that, okay, I need to reduce it. So it kind of helps you to know that you're making a legal army. So it's a useful tool to use, and I would recommend it for that type of the rules that we've just read through. And then going on to the allied units. So in a pitch battle, the number of points that can be spent on allied units from the player's total points allowance is shown on the pitch battle chart above. For example, a player playing a battle host game, i.e. 2,000 points, can spend up to 400 of their 2,000 points on allied units. 1 in every 4 units in an army can be an allied unit, which is the other important restriction to mention there. So you can't just take loads of minimum, allied units. It is only 1 in every 4 units in your army. So let's just say, for example, your army has got 8 units in it from the legions. You could only have 2 allies, which when you put it like that is quite big. If you want to take quite a few allies, like, minimum points and all that sort of thing, you really need to have a fair few units in your army. So that is something that's really important to remember. Then going on to allied units themselves, they are not included when working out the number of battle line units in your army. They do count towards the maximum number of leaders, behemoths, artillery units that can be included in your army. So that's essentially the way to stop people finding loopholes, going, oh, I'm going to put more artillery if I do this, something like that. And the real thing is that the battle line is like a requirement. You have to have them. So you can't cheat out by, let's just saying you want to play a Flesh-Eater Court army as an example, and you go, my minimum size units of battle line, let's just say you're not going Gristlegore and everything else, and you haven't got, flayers or anything else as battle line, and you've got ghouls, and it's like, 100 points for the minimum battle line unit, that's a bit too expensive for me, I'm just going to ally in like a bunch of zombies just to do it. It's not going to work like that, because those allied units will not count as battle line to get rid of that battle line tax, as some of us call it. And then going on to the next one we've got is warscroll battalion. So if a player's army includes the units needed to field a warscroll battalion, then the player can include the battalion as part of their army by paying the points cost for it as shown on its pitch battle profile. You must pay the cost of the units in the battalion as normal. The points valued listed for each battalion is an extra cost that allows you to use it. So it's not like, have all these units for, I don't know, the Death Riders battalion or something like that. Does that just mean, cool, because I have all those units, I get the battalion as like a well done, you put all these units together for free? No, you don't. You're still going to have a points cost to pay for that battalion. So that's just something to bear in mind. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to bring the video to a close here, because that's all I sort of wanted to cover in this video. Not really too long, just explaining in detail your army construction. So that's not a case of like, what are the best ways to build an army? It's just simply what is the legal way to build an army to be able to play it in pitched battle, and that is why I've done here. Again, I want to dive into allegiances in other videos, as I think that can be a complicated thing. Like if someone said to me, how do allegiances or whatever they're called work in 40k, I wouldn't really know too much, and I know it works differently, and that's really the point. Every game works differently, so just because you know one game doesn't mean that you know the other. So I will cover that in another video, and I will also talk about things like what is good ways to build any Age of Sigmar army, and that may not be like a specific how to play Age of Sigmar video. We'll see how I title it, but it'll just be good things you want to have in your army regardless what army you're playing. Good ways to build it. This video is all about what you need to be able to build a pitched battle army. And if there's anything that you think I missed in this video, you've got any questions or something I didn't cover, please let me know that down below in the comments like I mentioned earlier, as I'm more than happy to try and help you. Hey, the reason why I started this channel is to try and get people into Age of Sigmar and try and help them as much of their Age of Sigmar hobby as possible. So I'll be happy to try and help you best I can. And if there's any other topics you would like me to cover, that how to play Age of Sigmar, please put it in the comments as well, and I'll look into see if it's going to be something useful I could make for the channel and to try and help out as many people as possible. And with that, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash that like button, that subscribe button, and that bell notification. There exactly are 3 ways to really help out the channel, and those are 3 ways that are absolutely free. By smashing that like button, it shows to me that you enjoyed the video, and it means that, I'll keep up making these videos to try and help new people in these how to play videos. But if it doesn't get a lot of likes, I know you guys aren't really too interested in it, and it's not really a topic I return back to. By pressing the subscribe button, it really helps to build up the channel, and it's really a huge appreciation to me that you're enjoying the work. And then hitting the bell notification, it's just like one little extra click, and what that means is it helps out my algorithm with YouTube, like technical stuff, but it makes YouTube recognize that people are enjoying my content and tries to help show my content more up on suggested videos and all that sort of thing as well. So it really does help there. And then when it comes to things like comments, like I said, put them down below so I can try and help you out. And then the other thing I'd like to say as well is a huge shout out again to my lovely patrons who do an enormous job and are the reason why I can keep doing this. So again, like I said, my fantastic Morgasts. So we've got Sandback, Johnathan H, Filq and Bleed Red. Guys, thank you so much at that tier. You're giving so much support. I really cannot appreciate your generosity enough. Thank you, and please continue your great work. Again, my vampires do a fantastic job as well, which are going to be Mia, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, and Ronni H. Guys, thank you so much. And then, of course, my Necromancers, which is going to be Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, and Christopher C. Again, guys, you all do a huge job to keep the channel going as well. And what I'd like to say, if any of you would consider becoming a patron, please go to the link in the top of the description down below. It'll take you to my Patreon page. And even if you just consider giving $1 a month, guys, it really goes towards keeping the channel going. And I really couldn't thank you enough, and you would be doing me a huge favour. But if you can't do that, guys, no worries at all. But if you did enjoy the video, like I said, if you could please just like, subscribe, and press the little bell notification button, that would be a great service to me as well. So with that, guys, I thank you very much for watching this. I hope you learned something. If so, I'm very happy, and remember until next time to stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay hygienic so we can all start playing Age of Sigmar once we all know how it all works and we can play. But more importantly than any of that, remember as always that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.